Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Matt, thanks for stopping by. Now I've been looking forward to this tie for several weeks now. This is the second fly in our 2022 holiday Name the Fly series. If you recall, we did this on New Year's Day. We came up with a pretty flashy chartreuse streamer, and Jeremy Pegg came up with a winning name, the Electric Pickle. So we're going to do that again for Valentine's Day. But before we get into the tie, I do want to talk a little bit about designing flies. I picked up this book actually called Designing Trout Flies by Gary Borger a couple of years ago. Now I'm not going to do a review on this because the book is not all that readily available. It was published in 1991 and you still can find copies of it out there on either eBay and sometimes Amazon, usually somewhere between $25 and $40. But it's a fairly advanced book. It's not a book for beginners. There's not a whole lot of how-to in it. It's a lot of theory on why we tie flies or why do we design flies the way we do. But if you like experimenting and coming up with your own patterns, it's not a bad one to check out. But another thing you can do when coming up with your own patterns is just plagiarizing. Pick a pattern you like and change something up, change a color, change a material. Now this part of our sport is a little bit subjective. I mean, how much do you have to change a pattern before it's no longer that pattern? What if you take a muddler minnow and then you wrap a collar hackle instead of the spun deer hair head? Well, that fly's probably a new fly. And another thing you can do when experimenting is really just wing it. Maybe you take some inspiration from several different patterns, or maybe you just sit down and start lashing materials to the hook and see what comes out of it. And that's a little bit of what I'm going to do today. I have no idea if this fly is going to work. I know it's going to be fishable, but you know, it's got a lot of pink in it, so who knows? But if nothing else, it was at least fun to tie. Now about the contest, here's how it works. Just leave a comment anywhere in it. Let me know what you think we should name this fly. Obviously, I think some kind of Valentine's Day theme is going to work here. I'll keep it open for a couple days. I'll pick the 4 or 5 coolest sounding names, and then I'll put it up for a vote and let you guys decide what you like the best. And then I'll send a $25 gift card to Stockard to whoever comes up with a winning name. So that's it, everybody. I hope you like the pattern, and I look forward to seeing all the crazy names y'all come up with. Let's give it a shot. So there it is, the as yet to be named Valentine's Day streamer. I believe this is my second experimental pattern of this color scheme, and I do want some pink in it, but I'm not sure I like that tuft of marabou right there. And that rib, that's a little too wide, so we'll step that down in this one we're about to tie. I am tying this on a size 6. I believe this is a 5 extra long streamer hook. Let's go ahead and pinch that barb. And I'm going to put down a base of black thread. Use some thick thread if you want. I'm going to stick with 70 denier. It'll work just fine. And I mentioned I wanted to keep some pink in here. That last one was a red and white tail. Let's go with a pink and white tail. So just a pink feather. Plain old saddle hackle right here. A good sized clump. I think that's probably 15 or so fibers. Let's get that caught in right there. Okay, and I've got a good bit up front, so I'm gonna go ahead and snip this. Now I think it'll look good if we top it with just a little bit of white. Let's try this right here. Okay. Now I do have a little bit of a, building up a little bit of a bulk right there, but that's not going to be a noticeable lump because we're going to use a thick wool body. But first, I decided to try a different rib. Instead of that silver mylar, and since I've got pink, I'm not using a red hackle fiber, I'm going to try red rib. I have no idea how this is going to look, but we'll see in just a minute. Okay, after you got that caught in, take your thread up front. Now let's catch in some white wool yarn. And this is a 4-strand yarn right here. If you wanted to, you could split it up into different, smaller pieces, but I'm gonna catch the whole thing in because I don't think it's all that thick. And it's a pretty long fly, we can get away with it. I am gonna catch it in up front. I'm not gonna wrap it down and back, but I'm just using this so that I don't have a big lump if I caught it in at the back. So let's take this all the way back to where we started our tail. Now thread back up here, and I'm gonna hang my thread about where I want the back of this head to be, the front of the body. Now let's just wrap this up, touch and turns all the way up to the front. Okay, when you got it up front where you want, go ahead and catch it off with a couple wraps. And that is pretty fuzzy, but that's exactly what I want, and that's why I'm going with the wool. It will kind of help this rib to sink down in it if you're using a flat rib. It won't sink down as much as if you were doing a chenille, but I think it will a little bit, and it's going to look pretty cool. So let's see how this red does for us. Okay, let's catch this off up front. 2 or 3 wraps right there before we snip this. I'm kind of digging that red. It does look like a little bit of a candy cane, which is not a Valentine's Day candy. So this could double as a Christmas streamer, I guess. Okay, so let's get our thread right back here. I'm not worried about that last wrap of tinsel. I don't need that to be showing. But I do have a couple more components going on, so I can't start the next component too far up forward. And I do want a throat, but I didn't really like that marabou on that last one, so I'm gonna grab this same pink feather and just take some of these fibers. I think this is gonna be enough right here. Let's flip it over and catch it in on the underside, just as a cool little beard or throat. Couple of wraps. Make sure you're where you want before you really lock it in. I think we are. I think that's gonna look just fine. Now let's snip off that excess. A few extra wraps just to get this smooth under here. But I do want to leave my thread kind of at the back of this head for the white bucktail I'm about to put on top. Now before we catch in the bucktail, let's put a little wax on. I'm gonna just put a little bit right there. It'll make the thread a little tackier, and it might help us catch this bucktail in. And I don't think we're going to use a whole lot. Put it in my stacker. It's not an insignificant chunk, but it's not a huge chunk. So let's see what this looks like. And I want it kind of long, almost to the back of that tail if I can get it. Let's see. All right, about right there. That should work. And I am going to do this little trick right here. Just put one wrap around the bucktail, pretty loose. And now my pinch wrap around the hook and the bucktail. And that should help keep it on top of the hook without it, you know, rolling around on you like it's starting to do right there, but we've only got a couple wraps. We can compensate for that. So now I'm putting some medium wraps and tighter wraps. And I think that bucktail is secure on top and it shouldn't go anywhere on me. Got a couple of loose fibers right there. Okay, I like the thickness of that and the length, but it's sticking up a little bit more than I want. So I'm going to take a couple wraps right here, maybe a medium wrap right there. Oh, that one was kind of tight. Now maybe I got it, you know, sticking a little bit down, laying a little bit flatter. So a few wraps right here just to smooth this out. Now one more component, I am going to put a topping on this. And just 3 strands of peacock herl right here. Could leave them a little bit longer. At the end I want them to be a little bit longer than that bucktail, but we can trim them. So I'm just going to lay them right there with my thread at the back of my head. And let's get a couple of wraps right here. My thread is splitting up on me. That's fine. So a couple wraps, 3 wraps right there. Try to make sure these are on top. I think they're fine. Now I can do a few wraps going forward before I snip or break off this peacock herl. I'm just going to go ahead and snip it. If I break it, I might, you know, get them out of position. Okay, so let's pull these down, just work on our head a little bit. And you could certainly make this an optic bucktail. You could put a big, huge head on it and paint some eyes. And I'm not going to, but you know, it's a streamer, so I want a decent sized head on it. I think that's gonna be fine right there. Let's do a little whip finish. Now, one more trick I like to do anytime I'm using a peacock herl for a topping, I will just grab the herl fibers and not the bucktail, put my bodkin underneath it, and then put my thumb over the top and then just pull up with a little bit of pressure, not a lot, but that right there, and that will give you that bend. Now that was probably more of a bend than I necessarily wanted, but we'll see. I think that's gonna look okay right there, but it is a little bit long. You see, I left them long on purpose. Now we can just trim them to size right there, and I think that's a fine and fishable fly. So I'm not entirely sure what I think about this pink, but I do kind of like that red rib. So a little bit of head cement on this guy, and I'm going to take it out of the river, see how it does. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.